All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about real music and doing it in real time for a few real people out here, just like you and just like me. So, Don Felder has a new song out, and I want to talk about the song because I learned some interesting things by reading in between the lines. All right. And it's just me speculating. I know some people don't like that, but I'm just going to do it anyway. By the way, if you want to support the channel, buy me a coffee is a really good way to do that. Buy me a coffee. And there are links to these things in the descriptions of these videos. Patreon, YouTube memberships, and PJ Rock Super Chats, named after PJ Rock because he is the biggest super chatter. So thank you to PJ and all the folks that support this channel. Now, if you didn't hear about this, Don Felder has a new song out called Hollywood Victim, right? And if you listen to it, there's a bit of plagiarism in there, but I find out it was written specifically for the Hell Freezes Over tour. In other words, Felder wrote the song to go on this album here, right here, Hell Freezes Over, which, as you know, contained 4 new songs. Get Over It, which was all over rock radio. Love Will Keep Us Alive. That's a Tim Schmidt song. The Girl from Yesterday, which I believe is a Frey song. And Learn to Be Still, which was a pretty big deal for Don Henley. So you had 4 songs. Get Over It was kind of both Frey and Henley. There are no Walsh compositions because Joe at the time, I think, was getting sober. And I'm not sure he was writing all that well at that moment. Apparently, Don Felder was the catalyst that helped Joe Walsh get sober. That was one of Felder's responsibilities, was to get Joe back in the band, and he succeeded. And so this new song, Hollywood Victim, by Don Felder, was written specifically for the Hell Freezes Over, he says here, tour, but I'm thinking they weren't going to play a song on the tour. They were going to maybe include it on this new album, which they could have, but they chose not to. And I'm sure Felder had a demo at the time, and now the song is complete. Now, the song itself borrows heavily from 2 songs in particular. It's called Hollywood Victim, and there's another tune by the Eagles called The King of Hollywood, which appears on The Long Run, and most likely was written in part, at least the music part of it, by Don Felder. I haven't checked the credits on it. It could be just Henley and Frey, but the music itself kind of sounds a bit like this new song. And I also hear, especially at the beginning, minus all that cool saxophone from Glenn Frey's You Belong to the City. I hear a little bit of that in the song as well. So kudos to Don Felder for writing a song that is derivative of the stuff that people want to hear. Of course, music critics are always like, oh, it's derivative of a song they did in whatever year. And I'm like, and your problem with that is what? That it sounds like the band sounds like themselves and they're creating music, more music that people want to hear. Yeah, Led Zeppelin, they were really derivative of themselves on their new album. Okay, well, people wanted to hear more of that style of music, and this is more of that sort of atmospheric rock, which Felder is kind of famous for. I mean, his song Heavy Metal, that's another one of those songs that has a lot of this sound to it. Now, because the song was maybe supposed to go on this album here, and didn't get on there. This is the same stuff that Felder had been putting up with these guys from the beginning. I mean, they wanted his input. They wanted his guitar playing, but they didn't want him to write songs. I mean, Glenn and Don had this, and then you had Tim and Joe not writing songs during this time frame because he was getting sober. They still weren't willing to let Felder put his song on this album, which is a tragedy. See, the way I hear this song, and Felder does a decent job singing the song, but he's not a primary lead vocalist for the most part. All right, I'm gonna kind of agree with Glenn and Don. But what I would do with Felder here is I would give him some lines in the song. I would let him sing some parts. I would let Don Henley be your primary lead singer, but also have Felder and Frey sing some lines in the song. You could maybe even have Tim Schmidt sing, but I would probably do Frey, Henley, and Felder. But again, these guys are putting the brakes on anything that Felder wants to do to create. And they're not doing the same thing to Joe Walsh, which I think it kind of just tells that there's some kind of a grudge there. Yeah, you can come back in the band. You're important. We want you, but don't get all creative on us. Don't start writing songs sitting at your Malibu beach house again and sending cassettes to us. We don't want to hear that stuff. Even though, we're famous over the world. We've sold probably more albums than anyone else, especially on this particular album. We don't want you doing that anymore. And this is a prime example of Don Felder being creative and saying, hey, what would work with what the Eagles are doing now? And this works perfectly. And it sounds good even today. But you wonder why at some point Don Felder kind of snapped and said, look, I've done what I can do for you guys. He's kind of like the George Harrison in the Beatles. Like, I've played this the way you want me to play it. And we're now how many years in, and we're back together. We're going to make a ton of money. And you won't put my darn song on your compilation of mostly live material. That's what this is, with 4 new tracks. You wouldn't do a 5th track. And my guess is there are probably more songs in the vault that Glenn and Don rejected because it was Felder. It's almost political. Like if somebody comes up with a good idea and you don't like their politics, you say, well, it's a good idea, but they're just bad. So I'm going to reject it. We're seeing a lot right now in the world, like things that are going on right now in politics where people are just rejecting it because it's coming from a certain person. If they have a good idea, they're going to cure cancer. Well, if it's coming from them, we've got a great song idea here. Well, it's Felder. And so Felder probably thought, in the late 90s, look, I got Walsh back in the band. I look great. I'm still playing great. I think they kind of resented that Felder aged better than the rest of them for the most part, maybe up until recently, but he still looks good for his age. And I don't know. Maybe they didn't like his disposition. When he talks, Felder always sounds like he's about to read a children's book. He's just very upbeat, happy, optimistic. And that just doesn't go well, I guess, when you're always a malcontent or a curmudgeon about every topic. Felder says, nah, instead of doing a political rally, maybe we should give money to charity. Like, that is a much better idea, and you don't alienate fans as well. So my guess is this is another, it's not my guess, it's I guess what I'm speculating here, is this is another example of Felder being creative and the other guys saying, I mean, imagine having all of the Eagles in on this new song. I guess they just didn't want to give him any airtime. Look, that airtime, especially nowadays, isn't really that valuable. But back then, yeah, it was kind of a big deal still. The Eagles were making a comeback. And I could see Frey and Henley saying, no, we can't take a chance. We can't let Felder get any of this because what if people don't like it? It's not us, and we're the primary songwriters. And this just lends itself to the theory that these guys were dictators. All right? And this wasn't a band. This was a corporation. This was a group of people who worked together but didn't really like each other all that much. And it was just a business venture. And I don't think Felder approaches music that way. For the most part, I don't think Joe Walsh does either, but he succumbed to it. Same thing with Timothy Schmidt. I still don't understand those guys ghosting Don Felder, especially now. I mean, they should all be able to work together, but my guess is there's a contract somewhere that says you can't talk to Felder and you can't work with Felder. So anyway, Felder got Steve Lukather, David Paich, Greg Phillinganes, Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Greg Bissonette, and his brother bassist Matt Bissonette to help out getting these songs together and making them sound really good. And I would definitely check out Hollywood Victim. And the new album called The Vault, it's something I probably might buy. I might buy it because, I should have the vinyl, though. Maybe I should get the vinyl of The Vault. I don't know if it's going to be a 2-record set here. Courtesy of Frontiers Music. And the mainstream, they hate sharing stuff from Frontiers. They hate it because it's a label that started about 30 years ago. And its main goal was to counteract all of the crap that we've been listening to now for the past 30 years. Now, I don't like everything they put out, but their focus is melodic and classic, and it's mostly really good stuff. Most of the time, it's like anything else. Some of the stuff sticks and some of it doesn't. But the new Felder is really good, and yes, it's very derivative of the Eagles and Glenn Frey, and you should listen to it. All right, and this should be on the radio. By the way, of course, this is posted to every classic rock radio station website. Hey, yeah, Felder has a new song. Are you playing it? Well, of course not. Of course we're not playing it, but we're going to tell you about it. Thanks a lot. Great. It's really helpful. So if, music is going to recover and classic rock will become classic again, that's what I should have a t-shirt made. Make classic rock classic again. That's what I should make. Maybe I should patent that. Maybe someone can help me invest in that. We can be rich, right? All right, folks. Thanks again. I don't know why I'm going to feature Hell Freezes Over here, but I've got a couple of copies because people just throw these CDs away now, and I just scoop them up at thrift stores. I paid 10 cents for this, and yeah, it's a piece of history. It's a great album, too. The live versions are great. Don Felder is great. The band back together again. That was a good time. I thought, hey, maybe the Eagles can rescue the music business, but nope, not so much. Thanks for watching, though, and I will see you soon.